let's keep going because we're not quite done yet here, ladies and gentlemen. So LG provided guidelines for testing in what appear to be an effort to ensure the monitor is reviewed in ideal/specific modes in order to get a favorable result. Now, that wouldn't always be my read of a situation like this. In a lot of cases, the reviewer's guide or the guidelines given to reviewers are in order for us to have a baseline for what we should expect. Now, I think the issue here is one of maybe language barrier or culture barrier, because there's nothing necessarily wrong with a manufacturer saying, like, let's say NVIDIA were to say, okay, we measured these power consumption numbers and we measured them in these games. And the reason they provide that information is not to tie our hands and say that we are not allowed to test in other games or at other settings or whatever. It's to give us a reference point so that if we run it the same way in the same game and we get a different result, we can go back and be like, hey, there might be a problem with our card or maybe a problem with our test, so that they can help us. That's what they have. That's what they have, like, actual media engineer people for. They're trained on both the engineering side and how to interact with the press so that they can walk you through these processes and help you make sure that, not that the product is being seen in the best possible light, although obviously that's their intention.
That's the goal.
But in some cases, they've even helped us, well, at least troubleshoot through bad things that we have ultimately presented as bad things about the product. They're just there to help themselves get a fighting chance and make sure it's being evaluated fairly.
There's also, like, if there's some form of software feature, say, like to use the NVIDIA example, say you get a graphics card from either team and it has a new software feature that shows up really well on a few games. They can tell you kind of like what games those are and maybe where in the game it happens, so that you can show kind of both sides of the story, because you're not, that's hopefully stupid and are only going to show that game in only that specific scenario. But you can show, like, okay, yeah, it doesn't work in all these scenarios, but when it does work, it looks cool here. And that just helps simplify the whole process.
And
Reviewers' guides are fine.
In the case of a monitor, there are ways to test contrast ratio incorrectly, for example. Like if you were to, for example, turn the backlight all the way down on your monitor before you tested the contrast ratio, you might end up with an abominable result. It's going to throw off what your brightest brights will be, and it might not have exactly the same positive impact on your darkest darks. That's just the way it is. There's nothing inherently wrong with that. The problem is that whether it's because they're used to dealing with, from my experience, typically Eastern press is a little bit more play ball when it comes to these kinds of arrangements. So whether it's because they're used to dealing with a press where culturally there are different norms, or whether it's a language barrier, or whether they just outright we're trying to bribe hardware in box, I'm not going to be the one to make the judge, because there's clearly a lot of things that are... English is not the first language of the person who wrote this email, okay? Let's just get that out of the way. So I'm not going to make a judgment as to what their intention was, but it's very clear from the way they come across that they were trying to tie Tim's arms. They wanted him to only test it this way, as opposed to guiding for how to get the best result.
And to be clear, with some cultural differences or not, this does absolutely happen in the more Western world as well. We have seen it with other creators. It has happened. It doesn't seem very common, and I'm not sure how common it is outside of that. But yeah.
All right, let's move on because we're not done yet. The passive-aggressive bit, if the review doesn't match the guidelines, few edits would be necessary. Yeah, I understand that. I think that's at least 40% sort of language barrier there. And then if you provide them with draft, blah, blah, additional compensation. Okay, so Tim replied. The specified guidelines you've presented go against our review policies. We do not allow any manufacturer to dictate how we review products, and we do not provide drafts of reviews for companies to view. We also do not accept any compensation for reviews. We do not do paid reviews. This is something, sorry, I'll finish reading his email. As such, we'll be progressing with our review as normal. I'd appreciate a response within 24 hours so we can finalize this. Okay, so let me get this straight. There are companies and agencies that we have told multiple times, like more than I can count on a single hand times, that a review cannot be a paid review. there is no such thing as a paid review. If it's paid, it's not a review. And if it's a review, it's not paid. You can have a paid video and you can have a review, and those are completely different things, and they will never be the same. And anyone who does say that they do paid reviews does not do reviews. They do product showcases, which is what we call them, and that's what they are. So apparently, whoever this LG employee is, Tim blurred out the name, had not gotten our memo, or they'd gotten our memo and forgotten, because that happens a lot. Anyway, they kept digging. They said they did not expect that the product would have this issue. They didn't clarify exactly what issue they were talking about, but we can assume maybe that they're referring to some kind of ghosting. And if they had the guidelines shown above originally, likely given to them by LG Electronics, who actually manufactures the monitor, they would not have asked Hardware Unboxed to do a review in the first place and finished off by asking them not to post the video. This is the exact wording. If this be the case, I think we should not proceed this content. We appreciate all your efforts and true comments on the product. However, blah, 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 blah. As you've mentioned about your solid policies, we appreciate those. We would not ask for the draft or further compensation, but instead you should just exclude this review to go live on your channel. So Tim followed up asking if there'd be any consequences for posting the video anyway, like being blacklisted from future review samples, and LG replied as such. However, including your review and others about GP850, our client found out that GP850 is not quite a model that was with expected outcome. Especially when it comes to the faster mode, we expected much more of advanced results on this model compared to the previous 1 millisecond models of ours, but obviously it did not. Thus, our client is worried about the audience to not be interested in the new model. So it looks like, this is really funny, it looks like between LG talking to us and being too concerned about the new one being so good it would destroy sales of their existing product in the channel, they have done a 180 now that it got into the hands of actual reviewers who found that the improvement was not as much as they expected, and now they don't want reviews of the new one because they're worried people won't be interested in the new models. So here's what I want to know, okay? What kind of corporate structure do you have such that executives, because that's who directs the marketing team, it ain't engineering, I can tell you that for a fact. What kind of corporate structure or culture do you have such that executives get such unrealistic messages about their products that they direct the marketing agency, who may play a part, but I'm gonna say this one probably goes farther up the chain, that they direct the marketing agency to, based on completely Fantasyland, la 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 la, expectations of the product? How do they have so little understanding of this product that their company makes that they have no idea? Will it be so good no one will buy the old one? Will it be so bad everyone will buy the old one? Oh, I'm LG and I win either way. Oh no!
Is it even a monitor? What's even happening at this point? Oh my goodness.
So I just don't know how to deal with this, you know? I just can't. Okay, sorry, I'm calm. So anyway, LG didn't specify any specific consequences if Hardware Unboxed failed to comply, did request they not post the video. This is not necessarily a case, though, of LG trying to suppress a negative review. We just want to point that out. They actually hadn't seen the video yet, so they didn't even know if it was negative. And interestingly, Hardware Unboxed's review of the 27-inch version was generally positive, aside from that ghosting issue. And several YouTubers have replied in the comments in Hardware Unboxed videos saying they've experienced similar issues. And at the end of the day, what I think it comes down to is just that LG, and many companies for that matter, have no idea what YouTubers are. On the one hand, they think that they can kind of just pay a YouTuber to say whatever they want. And in a lot of cases, that's pretty much true, especially if you're a technology company and you go do some kind of sponsorship with a non-tech related channel. You just hand them a bag of money, they do a sponsored piece of content, and everything's hunky-dory. You've basically bought a commercial, okay? Where they run into confusion, I guess, is when they work with YouTubers who are actual media outlets and do reviews. They don't really understand, in some cases, what that means. They don't understand that that means that they are doing a review, and that actually providing them with a monitor or whatever means absolutely nothing to them. And if they really wanted to review it, they'd just go out and buy the monitor anyway. It's just convenient and saves some money, which is nice. Thank you very much. And in some cases is early access, which is also handy if you're trying to be competitive in the cutthroat world of online tech journalism. So a lot of the time they just don't really understand that. And the other thing they often don't understand, this is a really good fun one for me because I see where they get confused, is when they sponsor a piece of content where their product is included. That's a really good one because, you know, you look at some stuff we've done like that. For example, the ultimate bathroom gaming setup. Okay, that was sponsored by ASUS, and ASUS provided their motherboard and their graphics card, which we featured prominently in the video. And ASUS is actually mostly really easy to work with. It depends. You got to understand, companies are made up of people, and so at any company that's larger than one employee, you're going to have people that are varying degrees of understanding and varying degrees of easy to work with. Okay, so ASUS is generally pretty easy to work with. That was a pretty easy project. They understood that they could say, okay, yeah, we need to make sure that as part of the inclusion of our products, you guys are talking about sort of these key things. Here's the length of our warranty. Here's how our fans spin the other way, then spin forward so that they can blow dust out of the heatsink or whatever the case may be. But other than that, we understand that this is a video that is not about a motherboard and a graphics card. It includes a motherboard and a graphics card, and we're the title sponsor, and it's actually about gaming in your bathtub. A lot of companies don't understand that. They'll come in and they'll say, okay, hey, you know, we really think this video is too long. And I'll say, wow, how nice for you. And what exactly are your credentials? Are you a YouTuber? Do you have 10 million subscribers? Do you know anything about what we do, really, at all? In fact, do you even know anything about the product you're hawking? I don't think so. So tell you what, why don't you zip it? And this is why the business team doesn't let me talk to brands anymore. So
there's also, like, one of the ones that used to frustrate me to no end was, I think there's a lot of, especially when you're working with agencies that probably aren't like this closely tied to the brand.
Yes.
They want to prove that they did something.
Absolutely.
So they want to push changes just to be like, we know what we're talking about. You must shorten video for it to be better.
Exactly.
And it's just like, they have no clue what they're talking about at all. They don't know the audience that you are serving. They don't know the type of content that you're serving. They don't know any of that kind of stuff. They just want to try to put in the report that they pushed for something to improve the quality of the video, and that's it.
The most
baffling
part of this, that's funny, Mate Your Rate says Luke must be paid per word.
So very little?
The most ridiculous thing about all of this is just that LG, for the most part, makes pretty darn good products. And it might be worthwhile a lot of the time. Like, those executives that look at these videos and get this negative feedback, if they actually cared about continuing to make a good product and about making a better product, they would want this feedback. It's a competitive advantage. That is part of that whole, remember the symbiotic relationship between press and manufacturers that I talked about? It's valuable for you to get this feedback from experts like Hardware Unboxed who are going to tell you what you need to do better, because apparently you had no idea. You see how valuable that was? And now you're going and you're trying to interfere with what they're trying to do. Look, these guys are not consultants. You didn't hire them as a consultant to come in and pre-evaluate the product during the development process. That's something that a lot of press do end up doing, either as a side business or as a career. I mean, Ryan Trout now works for Intel. In fact, Scott Wasson, I don't think he's at AMD anymore. He's at Intel now too. Well, whatever. They both work for Intel. So effectively, they are full-time consultants for Intel. There's a ton of value to that, obviously. Otherwise, Intel wouldn't have hired them. But you got to understand, that's not the relationship here. When you're talking to independent media that are not beholden to whatever it is that you think power you have over them, that's just not how it works. I'm sorry. It's bad news, I know. I'm sorry. So there you go. Hardware Unboxed did the right thing. for our part, you know, we didn't really think it merited, you know, a call out, because we were just kind of looking at it going, this is comically stupid. It didn't really come across as evil in any way. It was just, wait, I'm sorry, what? Our situation. But I definitely would have a problem with the way they went about this with Hardware Unboxed if they had taken the same approach with us, which thankfully didn't happen, because they were upfront with us that they wanted us to not compare the new product against the old one. And we told them that we'll simply go buy the monitor ourselves then.